Thank you so much, Sydney. I'm hoping I'm audible enough, Sydney. Am I?
Yes, you are on my end. I'm hoping everyone else can hear you.
Thank you. A good morning to everyone who has actually taken some time to be part of this meeting. Mine is very simple, is to welcome you and officially open this meeting with some few remarks. So it gives us such pleasure as an organization to have such a forum like this one. It's so much interesting that no level of lockdown can actually hinder us from talking about these issues. Be it a first phase, second phase, or third phase, we will continue to advocate for issues of gender-based violence. We'll continue to also speak about issues that matters the most to us as people in our societies. So as an organization, we have seen it fit for today to have such a forum whereby we'll actually converse on issues of gender-based violence, and particularly celebrating the women who have actually taken strides in the fight against this pandemic which we are facing by the name of gender-based violence. And as we celebrate them, also marking the International Women's Day, I think Sydney has done quite a commendable job by actually giving us the background of where we come from when commemorating this day. So mine is actually just to welcome you and officially open the meeting, as I've said earlier on. But maybe before I get into that, for those of you who are actually not familiar with our services and familiar with the organization, I think it's prudent for me to actually go through of some of the services that we offer and what we do as an organization to try and put you into the picture. As NATIC, we're an organization which was started way back in the year 2002, and our primary focus by then was on HIV prevention and treatment. But then upon realizing that people, while they were getting that service, there was a new emerging phenomenon by the name of gender-based violence. The organization then decided to embark on this new project for combating gender-based violence in our communities, as well as also responding to teenage pregnancy, because we can all attest to the fact that by number one reason, which is the number of dropouts in schools, it accounted to teenage pregnancy. So for that reason, the organization saw it fit then to actually embrace that program as well, and also do some interventions along that field. So now we're working under the Shiselweni region. That is where our scope is. And we respond to gender-based violence, and also we also prevent gender-based violence through our community engagement and dialogues that we actually go and conduct in communities, in churches, as well as in schools. So now, when it comes now to actually celebrating these important dates in the UN calendar, like this one that we are actually celebrating today, we have no exception as an organization. We also take part in celebrating them, just to make the public aware and the communities that we serve aware of the true meaning of these days and how they are actually carrying a message for them. Because for people who are in communities, it's not just about a meeting, but it's about the deliberations that we'll make here. Will they be meaningful enough to actually impact them at local level? The deliberations that we'll make today, will they end here through these virtual platforms, or will be having a conversation outside these virtual platforms and actually make sure that the ordinary people and the ordinary citizen at a community level understands the role of these commemorations and the role that such days bring into their lives. So we are all about that today. I think also I want to send a special appreciation to the panelists who will be actually leading the discussions today and ensuring that we are all on board when it comes to the discussions of the day. So thank you so much for taking your time from your different busy schedules, and also to impact to us through your expertise. So we highly appreciate that as an organization, and we are much appreciative to it. So maybe as part of my remarks, I just want to go through some few lines before we can actually continue with the meeting. As we stay under the theme, Choose to Challenge Violence Against Women, we need to remember and recall that gender inequality is the overwhelming injustice of our age, and it's the biggest human rights challenge we face. Also, permit me to say gender inequality or gender equality is a question of power, actually. Men have used and abused power to control women and as well preventing them from achieving their full potential. Also, this is deep-rooted in the patriarchy which has been created by a yearning gender power gap in our economies, and also we can see this in our political system, in our corporations, in our societies, as well as in our culture. Women are still very frequently denied a voice. Their opinions are ignored and their experience is discounted. We are advocating for an end to this injustice and to have young women who will redefine what power looks like. We want a society that will enable the creation of a new inclusive form of leadership that unites people across borders and around common goals. Gender equality means finding and honoring women whose achievements were erased and ignored in their own time. Women's autonomy, including full access to sexual and reproductive health and rights, is far from universal. And for that reason, it is for that reason why today we're actually having such a platform to try and challenge the status quo. It is more important than ever for men to stand up for women's rights and gender equality. Only through equal participation of women can we benefit from the intelligence, from the experience, and from the insights of whole humanity. So with those few remarks, allow me to actually declare this virtual meeting officially open. As we continue to converse, let us also feel free to actually partake and make meaningful contributions. I think we have seen for quite a long time now that when it comes to women's rights and young girls, we are lacking behind, not only as a country, but as the world at large. So it is up to us, men, for example, to stand up and speak about these issues and become the agent of change that our society needs to see. So with those few remarks, I officially declare this meeting opened, and let us continue having a great time as we converse and challenging the status quo, as well as advocating for women's rights and gender equality. Thank you. Oh, well, let me hand back to the program director then. Maybe she thought I will take long.
Program director.
Yes, a very good morning to all of you, to the executive director, Pastor Clement, Mr. Zwagele, and Ms. Mamba Vena. A warm welcome to you to this meeting, and all of you colleagues. It is such a pleasure and a privilege for me to be part of this forum. We appear to have lost our moderator, but I'm sure she will be back in a moment. I'm sure she's having technical challenges or network problems. We will nevertheless proceed with our discussions. We will proceed with our program for the day.
Thank you everyone for joining us. At this juncture, I think we can give it to Pastor Clement to give us his remarks in this speech. Ms. Sydney is having some technical issues. She'll join us as soon as she can. Thank you.
Makhaya overtake baba.
Hey, sebangovertakile mani mfundisi.
Please go
Ngisaluhlele
ahead.
mbisa luhlelo hawu. Sebangishanga ethufile.
Please go ahead, sir, the directors. So, let me, colleagues, I am also in an office, not my own office. So I hope I am audible. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. So what I've done, Babe Makanya, I don't know how much time I have. As you know that I'm a long-winding speaker. I can speak until the cows come home. So please, someone send me a direct message to tell me how much time I have before I spend the whole night speaking here. Can I be borrowed the screen to share something briefly? I don't know who's the host. I think Tyson is the host. Can you give me some sharing rights so I can share?
Mr. Clement has to share. Mr. Clement.
Yes, ma'am. Now I have sharing rights.
15 minutes, thank you.
Okay, I've got 15 minutes. All right, let me sort out my screen. But otherwise, thank you for the opportunity to again be invited to speak in this event. I think what I was asked to do is to speak because I'm struggling with sharing. I was asked to speak on the things that men can do. I am excited because, you know, as an academician, you have the ability to borrow some literature and some insights from other authors and writers in these issues. So I will just share these thoughts with you. Now, Tyson has taken my hosting rights again. Tyson, please give me my hosting rights again. I've been removed from hosting. I can't share. Okay, I guess I should just talk through these issues and not waste for the time. So I was reading yesterday from a call to men, an organization that works with men at a global level. And they identified, I'm going to speak them through them quickly so that we don't waste time. The organization raises some very fundamental issues. The first one, we know that in our setting, literature shows that perpetrators of gender-based violence are usually, majority of the time, are men. But today I want to speak about things that men can do to end men's violence against women. And also talking about the issues of how we can use empowerment to empower ourselves and our children in responding to this. The first one is for us to acknowledge and understand how sexism, male dominance, and male privilege lay the foundation for all forms of violence against women. Now, I know someone will be asking, what is sexism? Sexism is prejudice and stereotyping or discrimination, typically that is done against women on the basis of sex. And I'm not saying that there is no sexism directed to men, there is. But in this context, we are speaking about the role of men in terms of ending men's violence against women. The second one, we need to examine and challenge our own individual sexism and the role that we play in supporting men who are abusive. It is very paramount for us as ladies and gentlemen to think about this, what your role is as a man that you have played in speaking to another man who is actually abusive to their spouse, to their girlfriend, to their children. Because if the silence that we have where gender-based violence is concerned, that means that then we are not playing our role, because we need to challenge our own individual sexism and the role that we play in supporting men who are abusive. Just this morning, we were speaking about the issue of cases of GBV against women not seeing the light of day in terms of the legal infrastructure in the country. I think Babe Segelo raised the issue. You find that the bench of judges in our countries are all males, and there's always the proclivity for them to actually side with their male counterparts. I'm not saying they are siding with them, but there is this level of proclivity that they might actually sympathize with their male counterparts, because whatever it is that hits another man, it means it might hit another man. Doesn't matter where you are sitting. So our level, or now I have screen sharing rights. Now our level of appreciation of these issues then makes us to be the same as the men that are actually perpetrators of violence. The other parts that I want to also, for the third one, is we need to recognize and stop colluding with other men by getting out of our socially defined roles and take a stance to end violence against women. It's important because the element of collude, it means we are in support, or we are colluding and defending, and even going to the extent of hiding other men who are actually perpetrators of GBV. So this one says recognize and stop colluding with other men by getting out of our socially defined roles. And we need to take a stance to end violence against women. Number 4, we need to also remember that our silence is affirming. When we choose not to speak out against men's violence, it means by default we are in support of it. Doesn't matter what we say in our corners. So when we say you are silent about violence, we are saying don't speak about it in your corner, but publicly speak against the issue of gender-based violence as men. Because if we are silent, it means that we are affirming. Number 5, one of the most important ones, I'm very passionate about the issue of educating and re-educating our sons and other young men about our responsibility in ending men's violence against women. This number 5 is close to my heart because I am a father of 2 boys. And I've always believed that as organizations that are working around ending gender-based violence, it's important for us not to just narrowly focus on the girl child, but we need to focus our attention also on addressing issues of educating our boys about gender issues, about gender roles, about their role in actually ensuring that they live amicably with their sisters and live amicably with their brothers, so that they don't become perpetrators. In the issue of education, we're not speaking about going into a formal school, even though that would also be important, that part of our curriculum actually speaks to issues of GBV and gender dynamics and gender roles and redefine those, which means when we sit watching the television, when there's something you are seeing on the telly that is actually a demonstration of gender-based violence, use that as a teaching moment. I know parents I speak to, they always say, I don't know what to say to my children, I don't have the curriculum, but I always tell parents, you watch movies with your children. You see things happening. Use experiences as teaching moments. Because if we don't use those things, we lose the opportunity to educate our children. And also, men, as fathers, we also need to ensure that we also piggyback on our own experiences. You know how children will actually get close to you when you share your own personal experiences where GBV is concerned, and use that as a corrective measure to say that was actually violence. I speak to my son about how I was beaten up on Christmas morning by my mother because I had committed an offense, and my mom waited for things to pile up. So on the day that she beat me up on Christmas morning, on Christmas afternoon. I was wearing new Christmas clothes. I had to remove them so that she could give me a hiding. But the way that I was beaten that day was violent, because the old lady was so angry, having piled up issues over the months of offenses that I had committed, which she was supposed to use and just correct me at that point in time. But when she decided to actually now meet the judgment over my life, she beat me near pulp. So one of the things that we need to do, experiences that you experienced as a Kenneth Makanya in your own personal space, use them as stories that you're going to share to your son to educate them about gender-based violence. Now let's take it a step further. This is the first 5. Then the next 5, I call them the next 5. We need to break out of the men box. Ladies and gentlemen, that we are stuck in. We need to challenge traditional images of manhood that stop us from actively taking a stand to end violence against women. Kuna traditional images of manhood, which we use. We all know these things. There are traditional ways, things that we use to define what manhood is. Let me make an example. Your child or your boy is actually cycling around the house, and then he falls because he's not wearing any knee guards or not wearing a helmet. He hits and he grazes his knees, and then he starts screaming so loudly, and you run and you see that it's just a small graze. What do you say? You say, stand up, pick yourself up. You are a man. Why are you crying like a woman? See, that image makes the boy believe that crying is for sissies or crying is for women. So what they then do is every time they feel pain, they resort to actually locking it up inside themselves, and they don't act out on it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the challenges that we have, because we have a traditional image of what manhood is. I will speak bluntly also. I have met parents of children who, when they grew up and they had their anatomical body parts of the boy is actually small. And the boy comes and challenges the dad and say, you know, I am not man enough because my penis is too small. And then you as a man, don't use that opportunity to teach. I know people say size matters. You explain to the boy, hey, chief, actually, this is normal size, you see, because men, when they get to the shower, when it grows up, they boast around using their anatomical images. They boast about these things, and these things inculcate a culture now of the boys wanting to go and test some of the tools that they have, because people have been undermining them. What they then do? They then rape people to try and prove a point. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our duty to break out of the man box and challenge traditional images of men. I can speak about this until the cows come home, but we need to explain and challenge this thing. Also, as a man, now come out of the man box for you to be able to challenge your sons, because do as I say and not as I do. It's tantamount to hypocrisy. The second point, in the last 5, we need to accept and own our responsibility that violence against women will not end until men become part of the solution to end it. We must take an active role in creating a cultural and social shift that no longer tolerates violence against women. in as much as I know the director is here, in as much as I am very passionate about designing male-focused interventions, I feel at a certain level, though it is a good idea to capture these traditional men who might not go to a facility because it's run by a man, by a female. But I think we need to think beyond just creating male-dominated facilities. We need to think about integration. Because if my son sees that every time I need something, I go to a men-dedicated facility and cannot go to another facility, I need to explain why. Because I've got a doctor who's qualified, who can actually test me and deal with my medical issues, but I choose to go to a man. Why do I choose to go to a man? It's because there's an identity that has been formed that says we need to have male-specific interventions. It's good to, as a catchment, but at the end of the day, we need to then think about how do we then integrate these services, accept and own our responsibility that violence against men will not end until we as men speak up. Number 3, we need to stop also supporting the notion that men's violence against women is due to mental illness or lack of anger management skills or chemical dependency or stress, because we use these things as justification. Violence against women is rooted in the historic oppression of women and the outgrowth of the socialization of men. Now, am I denying the fact that there are men who are abusers because of mental health challenges? I'm not. Am I denying that there are anger management challenges? I'm not. Am I saying stress and chemical dependence is not a challenge? I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, every time we hide behind alcohol, behind anger, behind stress, but we forget that part of the main problem is how we men were socialized, how we were raised, what we saw within our first point of socialization, our families. Other men, they were never raised by a male to mentor them how they should behave. So it's not just an issue that they are now drinking or they are drunk or they are high, but the issue is they were not socialized accordingly to respect women. We have a lot of disrespect towards women. We undermine them, we even call them our children. So if it's your child or you call them as a secondary individual, then the challenge is going to be, you will always look at them with the eye of a child, not the eye of a human being. We also need to recognize also human diversity. Women are women and they are human beings like us. They feel pain like us. So our duty now to change the landscape. If you are a father here and you've got boys and you've got girls, start now to socialize your children rightly, so that when they view their sister, they view them as their sister, and if they view their cousin who's a female, they view them as their cousin, not as a tool to satisfy their lust. So because once we don't define that, and we also celebrate stuff like 1910, number 5, we miss the point. The moment you do that, and your child sees that you have that woman and that other woman and that other one, we are actually training them because they are looking at us. And sooner than later, they start to exhibit the same behavior because there's always a behavior within the social environment. So we need to create and ensure that that environment is conducive for raising our kids. Number 4, oh, now I've skipped. Number 4, we need to take responsibility for creating appropriate and effective ways to develop systems to educate and hold men accountable. Unfortunately, we are always quick to come to the defense of males. He didn't mean to. As if we are mechanical and robotic. We are human beings with emotions. So we need to think about what are the responsible, creative appropriate and effective ways to develop systems to make men accountable. Accountability goes with education. Accountability goes with competency or competency. And we can only develop that in the space, a comfortable space from our family. We need to strengthen our family systems. I know we justify it and say they are no longer family systems, but we can create families outside our families. You're a man. You have something to teach to this boy that comes to you from your church or from a soccer team or from a choral group, and who comes to you and respects you and looks up to you. Be responsible. Find effective ways of correcting them, of teaching them, of empowering them. Develop systems around them so that they know that in church, I've got a brother so and so, or I've got Babe so and so. In a soccer field, I've got someone who has a responsibility of teaching me, and we develop new ways of doing things. Then the last one, number 5, we need to create systems of accountability to account to our women. Violence and discrimination against women will end only when we take direction from those who understand it the most, and those are our women counterparts. Someone made an example this morning and said, when you speak about how a bra looks when a woman wears it, you are just speaking as an outsider looking in. But for you to know how uncomfortable or comfortable a bra is, you need to ask the woman who wears the bra. So what are we doing? We need to talk and understand and appreciate the emotions of women and understand them. I see a lot of my students here. When we speak about human behavior in the social environment, and we speak about theories of understanding behaviors, that's exactly what we are saying. If I know the stages of moral development, I know that at this stage, the woman goes through that. Though I know that, but I can never experience it like the woman experiences it. I can never do that. So then I need to be able to hear it from the horse's mouth. I'm sorry to call the ladies horses. They're not horses. But as long as you hear it from the woman's mouth and understand it and take direction on how they want to be cared for. The challenge we also have is that we think we know how to take care of our women because we read it in some other book or we heard it from some other boy who told us, and then we do what we are doing. The reason why we are seeing our women being killed every day, it's because we do not understand them. We don't understand them from an anatomical perspective. We don't understand them from a growth and moral development perspective. We don't understand them from their own development. So what we do is we pretend like we know. We need to sit down and learn. And the best way to learn is to learn from them because they are the ones experiencing it. Now, I had the opportunity of getting some statistics. I felt so bad because if you look at the data that we have, Sydney also made reference to it. It confirmed to me that GBP by a relationship to perpetrator, the stats from January to September 2020, they are very, very fascinating. But when you look at ex-boyfriend and girlfriend, these people are in this space and doing what they are doing because no one bothered to teach them. No one bothered to explain to them what it is to actually become a better man. No one taught them how to become a man or somebody's girlfriend or somebody's wife. Look at the one that speaks about the husband and the wife. Look at the numbers. We say we love these people, but this is what we do to them, our perpetrators. It's strange. And also, one other aspect that these are the same statistics, which I wanted us to think about is every time there is gender-based violence or sexual violence, it is not through a person that's not known, but it is someone that is close that the person knows, and the person claims to love those people. So if we love one another or love our spouses, our wives, our girlfriends, we need to take better care of them, and we need to also learn from them on how they want to be cared for and to be loved. I think I've taken less time than I was given, but that is what I think is the role of men in actually trying, attempting to end gender-based violence. Chairperson, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dlamini. Indeed, you are right. I think the first step to understanding why these issues even rise, these gender-based violence issues, we need to talk to men, and men need to talk to each other. So just shortly, now that we have time for our reactions, I'll give it to Mr. Nzima to just react on that. And then we also have a question on the chat box that we will address after. Over to you, Mr.
Yes, Sydney, I wasn't actually raising a question. I was actually reacting to the address, appreciating it.
Okay, so thank you. With that said, I will go straight to the question. It is, do you think the justice system is an effective way of correcting, since it appears to be more rewarding to the perpetrators as they receive free transport, meals, medical care, yet victims has to fork out money to report and attend trials? Would we say the justice system is an effective way of correcting the gender-based violence in our country? I see Mr. Dlamini smiling. I'll hand it over to him first. And then, since we also have DCS officers from the Royal Eswatini Police, we'll also allow them to respond on that. Mr. Dlamini?
Thank you, Sydney. Let me start by saying this. It is very important for us to understand it. Not a single country in the world uses a single-strand approach to responding to GBV. So everywhere, every attempt to deal with GBV is welcome. Now, the element of effectiveness then becomes an issue of that is subjective to the person that's receiving the services. Now, if you ask me, from what I have been observing and saying, the challenge, okay, you are mentioning the free transport, meals, and medical care. Those are supposed to be received. It's a human right for someone who's in corrections. So they are supposed to receive food and transportation to go to court. So we can't take that right away from them because they are incarcerated, and that's one of the I would call it benefits of being in a correctional facility. But the challenge that we have is, maybe the question we need to ask ourselves is the wheels of the justice system and the understanding of the provisions and of the law. And also I spoke about who is the one that adjudicates over these issues. A deficit perspective or from a negative perspective, you will say, why are they receiving food? But if you look at it from a perspective that justice takes time to actually get to the solution, because there have to be investigations, there have to be assessments. But what we should appreciate is that there is at least an attempt to actually take these cases from where they are to the end. I am not part of the justice system. Zwagele, my brother is here, he can respond to that. But in terms of effectiveness, justice systems are not meant to correct, but they are meant to give judgments. And then correction and rehabilitation that happens within the systems of the correctional services or through social workers. Otherwise, they don't correct anyone. They just meet a judgment over someone who's actually committed an offense.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dlamini. I think that is right. I think when it comes to the aspect of correcting such behavior, it's more than a one-man's job. That's where now you need to liaise with other professionals. That's where social workers come in. That's where psychologists come in to ensure that this particular person has been rehabilitated and understands how they were wrong, and as well as the effect of their behavior and the consequences of their behavior. And only then can we say someone has been rehabilitated, by seeing that they've seen the wrongs that they've done and how the punishment is for that. Mr. Dlamini mentioned that Mr. Zwagele Dlamini is part of the justice system. Maybe he would like to share a few words with us shortly. Over to you, sir, if you have anything you'd like to comment on.
Thank you so much. It's just a pleasure for me to be amongst this function today. It's a tough one because us as people who are in the justice sector, we try everything in our power, although it may seem the justice system doesn't care about the victim. It depends on that particular investigator. There are as Mr. Dlamini had said, and the host has said, we need to do the follow-ups. We need to make the referral to holistically assist the victim. Although, as Mr. Dlamini has said, this is a human right issue, the perpetrator does deserve to have, I mean, gudla, toxin, and medication, and so on and so on. So that must not be taken as the justice system favors the perpetrator. Ngagcina lapha kwanyalo nasesihlalweni.
Thank you, Mr. Dlamini. As I mentioned when we began, one of our panelists is Ms. Vena Mamba, who is our in-house social worker here at NATIC. We will just give it to her shortly as somebody that works firsthand with survivors of gender-based violence. Maybe she can give us a brief overview of what survivors say when it comes to the justice system and in terms of correcting a perpetrator's behavior after and rehabilitation. Over to you, Ms. Mamba.
Thank you, Sydney, and thank you all for listening. From a survivor's point of view, there's no amount of jail sentence, there's no amount of bail money that can justify or equate to the abuse that they would have incurred or the abuse that they would have suffered. For instance, a survivor of sexual abuse, when you say maybe the perpetrator is given 5 years sentence, then to the survivor, it's not enough, because according to them, they've been destroyed for life. According to them, it's a life-threatening event that happened to them, and that would determine even their daily activities and everything concerning them. So for them, they've been destroyed. So no amount of jail term, no amount of bail money can satisfy a survivor of gender-based violence. However, we also want to appreciate the justice system in the Kingdom of Eswatini, as it has set aside laws that guide and stipulate, or that even help to correct. Like when you look at the Sexual Offences and Domestic Violence Act, it clearly stipulates that if anyone sleeps with a minor or rapes a child, anyone who's below 18 years, the sentence is 25 years in prison without an option of bail. Now let's look at a child who has been raped at 4 years, and already there's a lot of damage, a lot of mutilation that is happened on their body. Now you say this person is being given 25 years. By the time maybe that person is out of prison, most probably the child maybe is 19 years old or something along those lines, and they are still facing the effects. So what I'm trying to say is, for survivors, the bail sentence, the bail money, the bail sentence, it cannot justify. For them, it cannot justify. That's all I want to say from a survivor's point of view. Thank you, Sydney.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mamba. I think that is where, as NATIC, we also come in, because we cannot state the number of years someone should serve as being a perpetrator of gender-based violence, but we do work closely with the victims, and our main goal is that the victim or the survivor is healed to a point where they can get over what has happened to them. Not entirely, because they will always recall it and it may always come back in flashbacks, but we just want our survivors to be able to go back into society and live their normal lives. Mr. Makanya, can I just hand it over to you, sir, to react on that? Please unmute your mic, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. Modern technology. It's just a reaction to Pastor Clement's presentation. It is such an excellent presentation with very important points to end gender injustice or violence against women. My quick comment and question is on sexism, where I have a particular interest in, more especially toxic gender stereotypes that exist in our society. We will all admit that COVID-19 has reversed many of the gains that we had made as a country with regards to issues of gender equity, gender equality, and gender parity, as well as ending violence against women. The statistics in 2020 are a very good example of what we are talking about. Pastor, as men who have been socialized to believe or to view women the way we do today, because what you teach to your children or your sons is based on the norm.
Unfortunately, it seems we've lost Mr. Makanya. I am assuming he's having technical issues. It seemed he had a question to ask Mr. Dlamini. So I don't know if we can give him a few more minutes just to see if he comes back.
And I think I can guess what the question is. While he's trying to come back, let me start talking so we don't waste time. He's asking a question about, can we draw from an empty cup? He's saying we are raised in environments of toxicity, and where do we actually draw from to teach our children or our boys in terms of the element of sexism and other issues? It's a common question that we get all the time. I always say to our male counterparts, if it is itchy, you actually scratch where it itches. The challenge is, as men, we need to inform ourselves. We need to associate ourselves with men who can be our mentors to teach us what it is to raise our children. There are also, I know most Swazi men don't want this. when you tell them that we also must read books and inform ourselves on parenting styles, and find out information and find other partners who can assist us to sharpen our saw or our axe in terms of being able to address some of these sexism issues, how to raise a boy child, and what it is that you need to teach them. And find also allies who are maybe going through similar circumstances to assist you in addressing these issues. Because we don't live in an island, we live amongst people that have done well in raising their children. So we can learn from those individuals, and they can mentor us. If I'm not answering his question, he will come back and we'll address it. Or ask him to post on the chat box.
Thank you, sir. I think we'll ask him to post it on the chat box. So considering that we are touching on issues of gender-based violence, and we have discussed that issues of gender-based violence are on a rise, maybe we can hand it over now to the DCS officers that are present with us to say something. I saw there was Constable Nomkhosi with us today, so maybe she can give us an overview of GBV cases on the ground, statistics maybe from their end, to say how severe is it, because we only get a reflection of what is reported or what is put out there to the public. This 9,399 that we see from the last few months, from 2020, from January to September, I don't think is a clear picture. Maybe Constable Nomkhosi would have something to say on that, just a comment on how severe it is, and maybe just a word of advice to the general public on what to look out for, and how they would advise people to address issues of gender-based violence or domestic violence. Over to you, Ms. Nomkhosi. Okay, maybe while we're still waiting for our DCS officers to connect, I think they are unavailable at the moment. Can we hand it over to Ms. Venamamba as our in-house social worker, just to give us an overview of what it is like to work with survivors of gender-based violence, and just give us a feel. Okay, sorry. Seemingly our officer is online now. I will just allow her to comment on the issues of gender-based violence from her side before we move on to Ms. Venamamba. Constable Nomkhosi, when you are ready, feel free.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sydney. See, am I audible? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much, Sydney. And perhaps what Sibonge invitation, which is to Bungatalamush. The Sakurunyas, as we was listening to this comment. Siyatfola Sima yes. Siyatfola simaphoyisa ukuthi there's an alarming rate yebantu labesifazane labahlukumetakako. Not only bantu labesifazane, but everyone, nemadvodza, particularly amalanga statistics is very alarming. Masikhuluma ngekuhlukumeteka bantu besifazane, masikhuluma nje lapha station, 76% of the cases that are reported on a daily basis. My GBH matters, whereby the office there to set the candle Disebenza ngalokhu sezingeni liba stressed. Ngalokuthi lama cases inhlumbu owawu la reportwa ngama GBH laba reportwa ngama GBH matters. Lapho khona sesithatha sihlala phansi bukusana. Sabona ukuthi kunembangela, yini imbangela yalabantu abahlukumezekako? Yini ukuthi bantu sathola imbangela yalokhu hlukumezeka lokukhulu kangaka. Lamalanga liphepha sikhona ukulifunda, liphepha ligcwele ingadi. People are being killed, ikakhulu bomake abakhona ukutilwela. Sitheka nasihlala phansi bukusana sabona ukuthi lokubangela lokho unakho lokulandzelako. I-dependency syndrome. Lapho khona sithola ukuthi babe is the sole provider noma i-breadwinner ke lakhaya. Naka i-breadwinner utikhanza on top of everything. Utikhanza yena in control. Utikhanza yena live lakhe kufuneka alalele noma ngabe sengasiko. Lapho khona sithola ukuthi make wenta nento la ngasayifunda beketelele nokuhlukumezeka. Ngalokuthi ngani phela yena kude la kuletha ke etafuleni. Ngani futhi yena kude la live lakhe alivakali because kude yena la contributor. Nakathi uyakhuluma sithole ukuthi makuya threatenishwa utawuphuma la utawubuyela kene. Labanye ke uthole ukuthi abasakhona nalokho reporter besaba lokho kunzinza. Uthole ukuthi lekha kubo noma lekabo kude lapha atawubuyela khona. Lokunye icase nje ithi uthi lo make kude la ngitawubuyela khona bakithi bafa bonke. And akasebenzi vele sandla lesiye emlonyeni sibuya kubabi. So these are the causes ke labanga ukuthi bantu labanengi bathi khanze bahlukumezeka. Bese lokunye lesikubonile sibone kuhlalisana abomasihlalisana cohabitation. Lapho khona kuhlaliswana singakathathani khona. Lapho le abuse inengi kakhulu because kude even nala ungapota khona. Uyakabuse nje umuntu akabuse nje umuntu kude nalo ungapota khona. Sikubonile kusibangela kakhulu lamaqala enyuka kakhulu enyuka ngiloko. Saphinde sakuthola basasebenza sathola infidelity. Lapho khona kungathembekani. Thola ukuthi umuntu ushadile but nalabanye bopartner bakhe sexual partners. Lapho khona sesithola ukuthi segcina ukubangela umsindvo ke. Saphinde sathola futhi ama causes alamaqala ukuthi enyuka kangaka. Sathola i-over possessiveness. Lapho khona kune controlling behavior. Lapho khona umuntu uva ngathi lo munye umuntu akamveli wish akamrespect. Uva ngathi it's a property yakhe more than ukuthi ba partners kule relationship. Saphinde sathola ke ukuthi there is lack of communication emakhaya. Emndenini akukhulunywa. Sikutholile lokho sisasebenza kanti konke into nyalo sesiyakhulunyiswa. People siyaba encourage ukuthi bakhulume no matter how minor the thing is. Kuze phela ingathi oqhubeka bese seyiba inkulu. Lokunye sithole ukuthi lokungakhulumi kuleader ukuthi lomunye aqhine. Sekana ma grudge, then imfele ngale sisipaka the whole thing because there's lack of communication. Lokunye ke lesitholile sisasebenza lokunyusa lamaqala. Sithole ukuthi bantu they're so ndawuthini nje. Bantu bane ego kakhulu. Maba upote emaphoyiseni bevunga sinaba ngasisita ngani. Uyabo? Lokunye bahlale kule abuse bathitshele ukuthi besaba abantu. The abantu bazothini syndrome lebe ngingimisa isishabangu. The next thing nale khaya lami, the next thing sekuthiwa ngithini. So that's why abantu bakhanze sebahlele kakhulu ke ku abuse ke. Yiko ke lokusihlupha konke. Yini kuthathi buta lobunyathi emaphoyisa ke andani ngaloko. Simaphoyisa ke sengicetha nje ngaba sengithatha imbuto nabita bakhona. Simaphoyisa sisebenza madima. Going to the community together with our stakeholders. Sihamba siya emphakathini communities teaching people ukuthi baphilisane njani emakhaya. Teaching people ukuthi ba report, we encourage them ukuthi ba report i-abuse. No matter how minor it is, emaphoyiseni it's not indawo nje yoku report ama cases kuphela. Emaphoyiseni we do provide counseling. We do provide advices whereby the process yabona ukuthi okay we saba referish abantu bethu kuma stakeholders such as Bodatic siba referish le bo DPM's office whereby batothola kustakala kangcono but lazitfolile sisenza icwaningo lethu sithole abantu ukuthi base stereotype kakhulu abafuni ukuyoreporta basatha lenzaba ukuthi dibitendlu le dibitendlu ukuthi ikhanza ke sethi igcwalisa lamacala lamaningi mase sithethe lapho lethu kale ukuthi abuse seyithathe isikhathi leside sekulida lapho ke siphinde sebabulala nabantu sebendala just because dibitendlu asiyikhulumise emva namake la endlini singayisi ngephandle lokunye ke lesikukwenta kwemaphoyisa apart from the referral for the yabo khabe kuneni umbuso nje nalo qedwa ukubutwa nyalo ukuthi nabe i-justice system is it effective enough yini on my side as a police officer ngasho ngithi yes ngalokukhulu kudang with pride ngithi yes yasida in a way but so akubonile nemalupholes zayo but sayibona futhi sisebenzele the harsh sentences laba wathola kwalabantu babayele enkantolo lamalanga nje kunala isodof has been introduced lapho khona ema cases amaningi uthola ukuthi umvana ureshiwe thola ukuthi principal magistrate wayikhipha sigwebo ukuthi 12 years no fine lokho lokusisitaka ukuthi lo muntu angaphinzi labanye uthola ukuthi ushaye umkakhe kuthiwe 1 year no fine siyakubona lokho kuyasebenza ngoba uyathi umuntu angiphinzi ngenteni imbethe so kuyasisita kakhulu lo munye uyathuka mase sekaboshiwe uyakuba khona this sense of ukuthi kanti kuyaboshwana nembala bese ukukhanze ukuthi akasakhoni ukuqhubeka nekuqala lokunye ke le i-justice system lesita kuko noma ke sekunjani before thina sibayise ama-cases enkantolo siyasiqale sibakhanyisele labantu masibakhanyisela ukuthi vele omunye aqinisa ukuthi vele agcina lifike nawo labo free food nabo bani ngeke sikuthini bekunene it is their right lo muntu phela uboshelwe licala angeke bese sithatha i-right yakhe yokuphila i-right yakhe yokudla i-right yakhe to medication yayibona lento leyo so unalo lungelo laloko thina lesikwentako is just to correct ukuthi kungaphinzi kwenteke ngiyabonga.
Thank you very much, Constable Nomkhosi. Maybe before ngivule for my reactions, there is a comment on the chat box that reads, "It is not intimidating." I think in response to that, the main purpose of having this meeting today and having so many stakeholders join us is also to show people that we do have a department, Yaga Domestic, that it is your right as a citizen to go there. If you have a problem and you know it's in line to them, you go there, you ask to see a DCS officer. It is not every issue that has to be reported at the front desk. So we are hoping that this is to show people that you do have that right to say, can I rather see a DCS officer before I get there and talk about my issue or the problem that I am having. May we just open for reactions on what Constable Nomkhosi has said pertaining to amaphoyisa and the role that they play. I will allow Mr. Sisekelo Nzima to go first.
Thank you, Sydney, and a special appreciation to Constable Nomkhosi. My question is twined, so it will be directed both to Nomkhosi as well as Pastor Clement. One of the fundamental and critical things that Nomkhosi has touched in her presentation is the fact that people stay in abusive relationships because they are of a gain to them for material things and support. Now, my question will be, we all know when it comes to one of the influential structures in our societies, the church is one of them as a body. So, Pastor Clement, I want to put you on a spotlight for now. As a pastor and as an academic, I think you can shed some light when it comes to the role that the church can actually play in terms of actually being the agents of change that we want to see in the fight against gender-based violence. Because as Nomkhosi has said, most of the people, they do come and report these cases. But then I will go back to you as my pastor and you will say, let's pray over this issue, continue staying in that relationship, go back home and sort things out. As your pastor, I will continue also praying on your behalf. Then my question is, In as much as I'm someone who believes in prayer, but is prayer enough? And are we doing enough as churches to actually respond to gender-based violence? Are we making deliberate structures and informed decisions when it comes to responding to it? So I just want to hear your view with regards to that. Thank you.
Ladies first. Well, first of all, let me start by appreciating the question. It's one of the struggles that we are dealing with where the church is concerned, where the issue of GBV seems to be, we seem not to have the capacity to address it. And it is important for us to agree that pastors are pastors, like they said in the last meeting we had at NATIC, that their role is to preach the word of God. But what I realized as I was doing my research for the very same response in the church, I realized that gentlemen like Job, in the first chapter, they speak about him as being a noble and a good man. So I took my time to read history to look at what was noble about him. I discovered that he used to be the defender of the weak. He would actually stand up and defend them in courts and take care of the vulnerable, including women and children. And I found another one in the New Testament by the name of Cornelius. We love Cornelius also, who had a visitation from Apostle Peter and converted the whole family. He also was a good man, and he was doing acts of charities. The church, by its design, is not just a preaching machine, but it is also a charitable entity that is supposed to take care of the issues of the congregation. If you look in Acts, you will find that when the church started after Pentecost, they would go around and doing issues and taking care of the poor and eating together and sharing food and sharing clothing. Those were the needs at that time. But in 2020 and 2021, we are grappling with SGBV. The church must come to the party, and the church must get capacity to be able to respond to those issues. The issue of prayer, as you rightly said, is very important, but it is more, we need to do more than just pray. I always call it decisive thinking as leaders in the church. Where we can pray, let's pray. Where we can attach people to services, let's attach people to services. Because the church in its design is a combination or made of elements of individuals who are not just worshipers, but they are also professionals. They've got careers, they are doing work, and they've got capacities that they can use and borrow the church in responding to these issues. I won't even need to bother myself about issues. I refer, because that's his duty on a regular basis. And then I attach the people to Zwagele so that Zwagele can be able to assist me if I don't have the capacity as a pastor. Then, as I do that, I pray for the people as I do that, for the processes, for healing, for rehabilitation. But I need to respond decisively as a church. Am I saying it's wrong to pray? No, it's okay to pray. But when someone has come to you twice, thrice, 4 times being beaten, you are in breach of the law if you do not take action in terms of this person getting arrested for actually being abused and you're not doing your duty. ESOTV, it clear, was now now like us. So let's report these issues. I'm not saying abafundisi ababe ma-arresting officers ngumsebenzi wamake nomkhosi loku-arrest abantu, but our duty is to report, to ensure that these issues are raised to the platforms. Nase baboshiwe-ke sebathini i-counseling yemfundisi, ngibahlola lejele, ndoba counseling lejele. Now Shinkosi Busisi.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dlamini, and we can comment on our chat box. We are put a specific kumalo uti. How do people get the confidence to report to the police when the police actually re-victimize the victim? You will have a situation where the police demand that the victim is told to prove that he or she was abused. Ngabe maganomkhosi yini lo ngayisho wena pertaining to logo, because ngangisinalelela ngendli comment ikhuluma cishe ngaloko, it's a similar thing ukuthi labakhala ngekuthi amaphoyisa ngathi anako loku intimidateana, labanye uthi lo munye uthi ba rude. Ngabe unga responda uthi
Siyabonga sisi. Angathi, but when it comes to issues of abuse, ukhona nje i-office leya DCS lelibuke nje bona. Those people are highly trained, they are very friendly. Noma ngawuta naliphi inkinga yakho bayayi-attend, and ababuki side linye, bayakuva nawe, they actually step into your shoes, bakuve ukuthi uthini. I think it's so unfortunate ukuthi lona Spesihle waba na le encounter le noma this experience nemaphoyisa, but lengaku-advise nje it's ukuthi na ufika etafuleni lapha reception vele nje uthi ngicela ngiteka domestic violence, where uyothola ke labo make nomkhosi ke na other officers where lapho khona si highly trained. Nkosi yami siyacela kakhulu, asifanani sibantu. That is why sigma departments ehlukile. Silomunye uyavuka nje, lomunye liphoyisa leli nje, lomunye liphoyisa leli nje, umuntu uja general asifanani. So ke siyaxolisa kulelo hlangothi, but nje thina Nkosi yami siva lonke lisayidi lomuntu. And before starting the side, I said, what we do when you come to the police station, especially in our offices, we ask you, are you sure anything ayakho? Simbite lo muntu lokuhluphayo na isive side lakhe, then engage nobabili, then do counseling, see the effect of the matter. Ngicabanga ukuthi abantu abafika nje bafuneka domestic violence. Mhlambe kuta nangiloko, I've never seen a domestic officer a harsh noma anjani. We deal with different people with different emotions. Sinako nathi sendlule kuko into ethi njengalento one mina nje ngeke nje yakufubeteka. So I understand konke, like I mean lonke lisayidi lomuntu. So it's so unfortunate ukuthi Spesihle wadibana wa encounter nalo problem le. Siyabonga.
Asibonge Asithembe Spesihle, and to everyone else that is a part of our conversation today. Nomalo ibukelago. We hope that you are aware, Nyalo, ukuthi there is a DCS department in Maphoyiseni, and all you have to do ukufika usho ukuthi uteka domestic and batako qhuba khona, rather than stating nenginga yakho at the front desk, because vele I think there's kunema departments ngalokuthi not everyone unekhono lelifanako. Bakhona make nomkhosi that are patient and that will listen to indzaba yakho without being rude, without being intimidating. And so we really, and we hope that Nyalo sister ukhona kubasebenzisa kakhulu more than before. Bengbone a reaction from Mr. Dlamini. Clement, you were seconding Lakshogo, or you would like to add on?
Nkosi bengishaya tandla nje ngibonga what Mage Constable was saying, and the clarification. I think kubalulekile ukuthi si understand ukuthi when you come to emaphoyiseni vele wayiteka reception, you may not get the response that you need. Vele kubahle ukuthi ufike uthi ufuna phaka domestic I've had students placed at DCS in the past, so I know as a trainee the domestic violence, they are doing an excellent job. We are not saying they are perfect. There are some gaps, obviously, just like I've got gaps now in General University lecturer, So, but we need to, it will take time for this to assimilate, but let's be consistent in asking for assistance. So ulahlekile Sydney futhi. Nango.
Apologies, besengine technical issues la mine and JG. Thank you very much for everyone's contribution. There was a question that I saw go chat box before ngikhipheke. Abuta lomunye ukuthi ingabe is it my right yini nangifika at the service center, which is emaphoyiseni, ukuthi ngiyicelele your privacy even if angekho DCS officer to attend to me. Angathi ke ukuthi privacy as in ukuthi ngipsuke from labantwini ngiye somewhere private ngimele DCS officer ukuthi attended to me. Ngabe is it possible logo constable Nomkhosi ukuthi na ufikile ucele lokho ukuthi while ngisamele ngicela kumela somewhere private kuyendeka yini noma kuyendiwe?
Thank you very much, Sydney. Kuyendiwa vele encourage kakhulu because vele tindzaba labatikotako vele ti private akusita noma ngibani. So that is why we discourage them ukuthi bakhulume at the service center. Thina still office lethu lapho khona singena khona sithi khulumele one on one, uyasikhanza engxenye noma siyi4 uthi kanti no ngicela mina ukukhuluma tikhethele ngicela mina ukukhuluma na system force noma ngicela ukukhuluma na one officer because lenzaba yami ngeke ngikhone ukuyishela sikhona sonke. Uyenteka kuthole ukuthi DCS officer akekho njengaloko abuta lo muntu. Na ngekho DCS officer uyawathola ke maphoyisa inkumbi lapha. Sengithi DCS officer akekho njengalo ndlula emhlanganweni. Uyasho ngoba into DCS officer so ngacela munye because bakhona labo they are trained, amaphoyisa are trained kuto tonke tinhlangothi. Sengilokuthi nje bese sekuba khona lona elikhulu lelithide. That is why bese uya specialize ke. Otherwise they are trained. Lo officer akhuluma naye so ngamtshela ukuthi ngicela ukukhuluma nawe ba ma office manje ngilapho khona ningafike nikhulume khona. Siyabonga.
Thank you, Madam Nkosi. Ikhona ke i-comment for Nonophile Dlamini lo shoko ukuthi cha naye uyalibonga lelithuba lekuthi sikhone ukukhuluma about such issues because we do have a lot of women that are experiencing violence, that some are still in those situations, but ukuthi it is wrong, but ukuthi they have to report, but kuba lukhuni because as we mentioned earlier ukuthi this type of abuse, most of it from someone that you know and someone that you love, which is it's called the intimate partner violence. Kuti angeke kusuke nje stranger from outside sitongshaya. Kubang someone that I trust, someone that I lock myself in the house with and sambama ngihlale naye. Kubang loyo muntu that turns against me and becomes the perpetrator nyalo long abuser. So sesitawunika nje Ms. Vena lithuba lekuthi naye asichazele ukuthi with all her experience working with survivors of abuse and coming firsthand kubona ukuthi umuntu unaka abuseka ubanjani, she can just give us a few pointers or asking an overview as to what of encouragement to anybody that is still going through Leo issue Leo, anybody that is still being abused and how they can come out to actually be a survivor. Ms. Vena Mamba, over to you.
Thank you, Sydney. Thank you, Mr. I hope I'm audible enough. As a social worker, as a social worker, we are known for building relationships, endurance, and human dignity. So this month we are choosing it by we are celebrating it by choosing True Against Women. The impacts of abuse varies from person to person and from case to case, and the nature and severity of the abuse may cause more serious impact. Many other factors may influence the degree of damage the victim or survivor experiences and the perspective of the individual, individual's internal and external resources, and the individual's levels of support. So I'm just going to hint on a few psychological effects that survivors of gender-based violence encounter, specifically women. So psychologically, they may have mental disorders or mental illnesses ranging from psychosis, bipolar, personality disorders, and then the most one, which is commonly faced by the survivors of gender-based violence, is suicidal ideations. So you find that these actually lose hope. They no longer want to continue to live. So at the end, they desire to die, and also they desire to take their own lives. So they end up committing suicide, or they'll be just thinking about killing themselves. So those are suicidal ideations. We also have depression. You find that most victims or most women who have faced gender-based violence, they are depressed. Some, they even enter into severe depression to the extent that they get on medication so that they can continue with their daily lives. Then we also have post-traumatic stress disorder, which then makes the women to have anxiety attacks and then certain phobias, which can emanate as a result of the abuse that they incurred. Then also still on psychological effects, we've also noted low intelligent quotient to the survivors, as for instance, if the woman was in the work environment and known to be performing well, her performance at work becomes low because she's no longer thinking abruptly or the way that she's supposed to, or the way that she was used to.
Apologies, Ms. Venamamba, usanema technical problems la minor, but she'll continue with her presentation shortly.
Thank you so much. So I was touching on depression, and I was saying depression, especially post-traumatic stress disorder, whereby you find that these women are having anxiety attacks, they're having panic attacks, and they now have phobias or different things, especially emanating from the abuse that they incurred. Then I also hinted on low IQ, that the performance level at work becomes low. And for those females who will be in schools, you also find that their academic performance becomes low. Then maybe just to hint a little bit on the psychological, on the emotional effects, you find that women who have encountered abuse, they tend to have,
Ms. Venamamba will continue shortly. She's still connecting.
Sorry for the interruption. Then I was hinting on the emotional impacts or emotional effects that the survivors encounter after the abuse. I was looking at isolation, that the survivors, they actually isolate themselves, the things that they used to do, the activities that used to mean a lot to them, they no longer partake in those activities as a result of the abuse. So in other words, they kind of withdraw from the normal activities that they used to do. And also they experience unbalanced feelings. Their feelings are no longer balanced. They usually report feelings of confusion and feelings of and feelings of this. And another major thing that the surveillance is difficulties in establishing interpersonal relationships. So you find that difficulties with trust, and they also fear intimacy. They either avoid, fear, or lack interest in sex. And some of them, they end up blaming themselves, which you call self-blame. And they also possess low self-esteem. And also they have passive behaviors when they are dealing with relationships. So some are passive, they always what the other person wants and do what that particular person wants, ignoring their own feelings, ignoring their own wants or their own needs in that particular relationship. So maybe just to hint a little bit also on the physical effects or physical impacts of gender-based violence, let's look at the health problems that they encounter. So you find that some of them, they are reported to have hypertension as a result of the abuse that they have encountered. Then because for those ones who have maybe been exposed or subjected to sexual abuse, they may have STIs or HIV as a result of the abuse. Then with others,
Thank you for calling NCC. Simple speaking.
yeah,
Njani?
all those are physical effects
Siyaphila.
that people, that are women as well as
Okay, ngicela ushayele nayinombolo nayo Nkosi. Ushayele 2517 9448.
Sorry, may we advise that we all mute our
Yes.
mics? Operator. You may continue, Ms. Mamba.
Sorry for the disruption. I think I hinted the psychological, emotional, and the physical effects that the survivors of gender-based violence encounter. So maybe now, speaking to the women who have been abused, or if you know someone who have been abused, the question is, how best can we help these people? We cannot just discuss the impacts and the effects. Now we want to know what is it that we can do to help such women. Firstly, the one thing that has been maybe seen by many clinicians or people who have worked with people with abuse is for them to seek counseling. So counseling is in different forms and no specific treatment model is used for counseling. However, through counseling, women are empowered with decision-making practices whereby they have to stand up for themselves and make decisions that best suits their needs and their wants in their lives. And also through counseling, the women are helped to increase their ability to accurately attribute responsibility. So by responsibility, we are saying if you're in an abusive responsibility to end it. It is your responsibility to avoid it. It is your responsibility to come out of it. And also counseling in women with relationship management techniques, whereby the women are taught how to relate with each other and how to relate with the males or people that they are in relationship with. So in relationship management techniques, it is there that the women are supposed to probe the relationship itself. Is it satisfying for them, or are they maybe satisfying the other parts? Because in relationships, it comes in two ways. It's not just the woman only must be giving, but it's a give and take situation. Also through counseling, they are taught anger management techniques. As you know, abuse will make someone be in a constant mode of anger. So they're actually taught on how and when and where to address their anger. Also through counseling, women are taught economic empowerment, whereby women must not rely and depend on men for things, because we've seen that women are highly abused because they are dependent on the perpetrators. So through counseling, women are taught to be economically independent. They are taught to think of activities that they can do that generate income for them, that bring money for them, so that when they enter into relationships, they are not getting into relationships so that they can be taken care of or provided for, but they are entering into relationships for companion. Then through counseling, they are also taught to be assertive and also self-awareness, amongst other things. Then another thing also, if you're a woman who's facing abuse, or you know a woman who's also facing abuse, after counseling, the other thing that you can also do is to change the environment. Change the environment where you are facing the abuse. You can actually change the environment to actually help you. A new environment will bring new perspective, will bring new ideas, will bring new friends, will bring new feelings, and will actually maybe most probably get rid of the abuse fully. And then another thing also, lastly, this is what I want to just talk about concerning what women can do when they are facing abusive relationships. We are saying, please, 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 women, leave abusive relationships. There is no need for you to stay in an environment that is costing you happiness, in an environment that is costing your life, in an environment that is making you to be in a constant panic mode, in an environment that is withdrawing you and even making you feel like you are not important, you should have died. So we are saying another thing that you can actually do is to please leave that relationship. Leave that relationship. You can actually do it. Women, leave abusive relationships. It's not worth it. I've heard Nomkosi saying it's like women, they want the status of I'm married to so and so. If marriage is not working for you, let it go. Women's life are not dependent or are not dependent on marriage. In fact, rather, let me say, marriage is not a purpose. Marriage is not a purpose, but it's something that comes and something that we need, yes. But if it is not serving your needs, if it is not fulfilling your purpose, if it is infringing with your rights and your happiness, and if it is making you sick, please leave abusive behaviors. Thank you. Back to you, Sydney.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mamba. I think you've touched on quite a number of issues. For instance, you touched on some issues there where Constable Nomkosi had spoken about dependency syndrome, infidelity, and so on being the causes of abuse. You actually spoke about the counterparts to say, what can we then do to avoid such? So we do have a comment on one of our chat box. It is from Mr Dlamini, who says, what is done to someone who changes her statement about being abused at the police station? Is she charged for lying about being abused, or is there an investigation carried out to see if she was forced to change the statement? I think this one is specifically directed to Magenom Kosi. Guti, are we allowed to come back to retract her statement? And do you follow up? Guti ngabe vele ngishintsha noma sengivala because ngiyafuna noma sekukhona lo sangisongele ukuthi cha angiyele emaphoyiseni ngiyovala leli cala ngiyokhipha le statement. Ngabe kuvumelekile yini? Over to you, Constable Nomkhosi.
Siyabonga Sydney. We do vele si encounterish my problems kanjalo, whereby someone comes and a statement when it's time to go to court, noma when the investigation intensify, umkhanye sikashintsha statement. Bantu bayathuswa. Noma uthole ukuthi uyireportile, the first statement is the one that's reported ngisona. Mase akaphumela ngephandle uthole ukuthi le nto the abuse beyisekhaya ngiyabekisa. Then by the next thing she comes back to change the statement because so true noma sawubhadelwe. Sayeke sithathe the matter leyo siyise enkantolo. Then from there umshushisi ayibe siyabona decide bese they went interview yakakhe. Then nakutholakala ukuthi vele lo muntu lona unemanga bekavula nemanga kusukela eqaleni uyaya-charge kuba ngivice versa eboxing bese ngena yena kuphuma lo muntu. Siyabonga.
Asibonge Magenomkhosi, asithembe uvile Dinhle Dlamini question beyichamuke ngakuye. It goes to show that in as much as we encourage that we report, as a report in lokungiko, as a report in emaqiniso, let us not try to kupenda umuntu gabi ngendlela lengasiyo. Also, I think kulqala nalokuthi umuntu ngabe sesomtshela ukuthi akangayi reporter, because when a crime has been committed, someone needs to be punished for that crime. I have a question of my own, Magenomkhosi, going back to a comment lebe khona chat box yethu ukuthi some women do not report abuse, not because abafuni, but because utokanza ti perpetrator songele wangithembisa tibham ukuthi nang reporter utangidubula, nang reporter utawenda naku. Ingabe is there any way leningangishielda ngayo nimaphoyisa noma leningangiprotecta ngayo from the perpetrator wami lo sathi nyalo utangidubula nangemaphoyiseni?
Siyabonga Sydney umbuto. Ngiyawubona lapha uthi bese perpetrator ufuna umthreatisha ngesibhamu. When you come to the police station, konke lesikukhulumako ku private and confidential. Lesaye sikwenzeka to protect you. Now upota indlela njengaleti. Saye sikuthathe sikise enkantolo. Lapho khona i-peace binding order iyayiphume. But vele before that, when you must arrange, arrange an environment lapho khona utawususwa phela vele ngoba nganisabukana. But a peace binding order and a registration order yokuthi when awusasonzeli kulona yaye bese iyaphuma through court.
Thank you very much, Magenomkhosi. I think nalolo kusho goes back to le theme yethu nasithi choose to challenge violence against women, and we are encouraging women to make a change. I think kwagona naloko goes with nale change layer to say, in order for one to be helped fully and effectively, it must also come on my end, mine as lo muntu in the situation layer to make a change. I see a hand, mane angikhona ukufunza leli gama. But ngitakuvulela ukuthi react, it could be a comment, it could be a question. You can go right ahead.
Yebo Sydney.
Ngingaphakamisa
amathi noma ukhumbeni.
Bengathi kungigeda mhlambe kulokushiwo kulo office mayelana naleti ibhamu kungaba ukuthi lo mthetho uyavuma lokho ukuthi lesibhamu nangabe mhlambe sosebenzisa budlapha athreatenishe abantu, that gun can be taken noma sisizwe amaphoyisa ayobekwa siyobekwa until that matter is solved enkantolo.
Oh, okay. Siyabonga sir. Anginike Mr. Ngambule, Long Prevention Officer wethu ukuthi naye and I react and get to that.
Ngiyabonga Sydney. Maybe wami umbuto usemuvana kancane but ngifuna kwathi la ukuthi most people ba affectekile ngale COVID-19 balahlekelwa ngumsebenzi and found themselves going back home, staying with their partners 24/7. And ingabe kumake nomkhosi angathini lapho ngoba ukhanza ukuthi babe, even though he is without a job now, he is still expected to go to provide for the family. And make akusamehli kahle nababe sokucala kuvuka lulaka ngokuthi akasasebenzi sekuba upside down nje in the family setup. Ingabe ka-DCS abakatholini into lenjalo and ikhona yini lusito labalvetako kulawo ma-families that kanjalo ngoba usually when you are being retrenched from work you get counseling and prepare you for lokho ukuthi wena usually every month end there is a pay you are getting, but now it is no longer like that. Ngiyabonga Sipho.
Okay, we will give Magenom Kosi the opportunity to respond to Mr. Ngambule, and then we'll also give Ms. Venamamba a chance to react to Lalak Butago, Mr. Ngambule, pertaining to the COVID-19 pandemic and the effects out.
Siyabonga i-COVID vele ngiyona lesibanga lemacala amakhulu kakhulu simaphoyisa naseven nje jikelele lonke nibone mameda kunjena nje indzaba yi-COVID silahlekelwe vele ngumsebenzi lokunye lokubanga lamacala asikatayilani lokuhlala ndawonye ngiyayibhisi ngimake nababe noma siyifamily nabantwana sibabuya bahlale ekhaya into bayenteka itolo besithi masivuka siye emsebenzini sonke nabantwana baye emsebenzini sibuye entsamba masilele sidinelwe kude lesikhathi sokwatana kangcono. So-ke kusibangele kakhulu-ke labo bantu angathi umfundisi utawuthini lapha umfundisi babe Clement i-counseling lapha mabathathana labantu noma-ke ekhaya imcwa kakhulu na isentence nje ethi for better for worse lisho kona lokho nje ukuthi itahle kwenyukela kuhle kwehlela. So people funeka babe mentally stable kakhulu babe matured to understand into leti njengaleti kusibangele kakhulu-ke vele incabo. But nje nabafika estation saba encourage futhi ukuthi ebede kakhulu for counseling lapho khona sikhulumisana khona phela babe sowukhona phela it's not really kahle hle ukuthi kuhlebe ngibaba lo provider into setashintsha sesi provider sonke babe nangalethi singwa make nomkhosi yasiletha singo. So we do have a national disaster sihambe sifundisa emangweni encourage abantu ukuthi people must engage themselves baqale ama-projects ethi ingulube ama-project ethi inkukhu ama-project ingadi lapho khona kutoba khona lokudla while sisamele simo phela sitaphinde silunge. So bangiloko-ke bekunene ukuthi ayiphela maka akalungisa ingqondo yakhe naye ashukutele abe ngumfati. Umfati uyawuthi yini mina ngathi umgogodla wekhaya. Without make, a house, it becomes a house. It is a house. Ize kube i-home because sekuna make. Make-ke uyakhusha uniform. Ngibona abafati bakhithe ama-uniform nabo baletha something etafuleni. So ngilokho-ke lesi-encourage-a kubomake. But-ke we can't really help them abahlele emakhaya. Sikhona kubatweba nathi sekwentekele licala isikhathi esiningi noma sebashayene noma sekwentekele lapho khona sesithi-ke sesiyayibukisa indzaba sithola ukuthi the source of the conflict ngilokuthi baba akasa-provide lakhaya thola ukuthi namake naye sophumeta indzaba takhe sowendani. But nje leyo nkosi yami ngidawucela umfundisi babe Clement nisibambise kakhulu, siyawathola ama-challenges kakhulu singaphoyisa, sithole ukuthi lakhaya akusahlaliseki, sithi nasi ukuthi background check, sithole ukuthi le counseling vele yaba imfisha kakhulu, sitawucela nje umfundisi nisibambise kakhulu UNESWA crime prevention is concerned, nisibambise engage the parents labatali babo labantu abashadayo noma lemndeni yabo, because sikhathi lesiningi sithi nasenta abo counseling sithole ukuthi nje umfundisi yena it's all about yena ulola ukuthi abantu baphile holiness, it's about holiness. As far as counseling is concerned, laba siyasebenza noma nje nganathi sine office they thinking ukuthi give yourself time satane kahle, then ke sekuya communicatewa. Siyabonga.
I think is all freezing if it's also we are freezing fun.
Ngasini kuhle kuba network issues. No, I think today this meeting was very productive. Sibonge ku Pastor Clement. I hope and I pray nitawambisana na Magenomkhosi in relation to what pre-counseling for people that want to go into marriage. Everyone must know the role that they are to play gule union yabo, to avoid issues lafana nanawa Mr Ngambule bekakhuluma ngawo ukuthi sesikhanza make akasafuni contribute ekhaya ubuke babi, because those can also be part of lema contributions to gender-based violence. I think lokunye kwako could be caused by the fact that COVID came with a lot of frustrations, financial frustrations, emotional frustrations. It affected everyone, but I think ikakhulu try and address these agenda. However, sekwendekile-ke sinabo Ms. Venamamba and our group of social workers apologies once again. Nginenkinga ye-network lana. But as we're winding up, we would just like to add, Guti, NATIC is an organization that doesn't just look at victim, nor survivor of violence. We also do focus on the perpetrator, which is we offer perpetrator counseling. We believe Guti we are with the to say, even if we look at victim, we look at perpetrator, we want a better society. We want people to live in harmony and to live in peace. So that is why those are our main goals in Jagana Senda Labo counseling. We want to see people change for the better. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of our meeting for today. Thank you very much to everyone that has participated in our conversation. Thank you. To be part of this. We know people are busy, you've got other things to focus on, but again, be part of this. So we would like to just extend a hand of gratitude to say we appreciate all of that and the support that you have shown us today. To our executive director, Mr. Nzima, to just share Emma closing remarks before we officially close. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sydney. May we take this time to actually thank everyone who has partook in this meeting, and also for the contributions that have been made. As an organization, we believe that these were not just mere contributions and comments that were made, but these are the things that we truly need as societies, as a society in this country, to actually change the status quo. When it comes to issues of gender-based violence, I think no day goes by without any reports of that matter. So it is upon us as individuals to actually take it upon our shoulders to make sure that we play a role in curbing gender-based violence and making sure that we are raising a society that will actually respond positively to gender-based violence. As all structures, be it churches, schools, families, we all have an important role to play in making sure that we're living in a gender-based violence-free society. And I think the presentations that were made today, they point to the direction that this whole thing starts at a family level. So at micro level, at home where we are raised, at home where we're actually raising our children, it is upon us as parents to make sure that we socialize our children the right way, both the boy child and the gay child, and the girl child rather, alike. We give them the attention that they deserve, and we make sure that we are always there for them throughout their growth, and to ensure that we are raising a generation that tomorrow will lead this country and will not have such incidents of gender-based violence. So we take this time to thank every one of you as we wind up this meeting, and we believe that we will take these conversations outside this forum and also continue to make them meaningful wherever we are strategically positioned as individuals, to make sure that we advocate for gender-based violence-free society, and we advocate for human rights of all kinds, and we advocate for equality when it comes to every opportunities that are available to humankind. So with those few remarks, we thank you all, and we're wishing you a productive day as we continue with our day today. So thank you for taking this time and be part of this discussion. So thank you so much to you, Sydney, our host, for actually conducting and moderating the discussions for us. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nzima. It is with great pleasure for me to be a part of this. Thank you for the opportunity as well.